clearly you can tell that he's a hockey fan. And he's a Colorado Buffalo fan. And by the way, the Buffs have a huge game this weekend as we tape this on November 12th against UCLA. And Jordan Gebhard works with the Kings. He works with the Ducks. He is an Emmy Award-winning producer, editor at Fox Sports Net, which is now Bally Sports West. So they've made that recent transition. And Jordan is somebody who is an icon in the business, has so many stories to tell. And we're going to point out what makes him inspirational. And look at his drive and look at his journey. This will be a blast. I'm Bryan Fenley, a national anchor at Fox Sports Radio. And I'm on Twitter at Bryan Fenley. Jordan, I want to start here because I see you wearing that CU pullover. I want to know about you as an ice hockey player at CU and what that would turn into as a career working in NHL broadcasting. But what was your competitive drive out there on the ice in college?
So I grew up in Southern California and started to play hockey before Gretzky came. So that kind of dates me. But I was one of the few kids that were playing hockey in Los Angeles when they were wearing the purple and gold. And there were only about 12 rinks in all of LA. So I was a hockey fan and I played hockey since the beginning. It's one of my main passions in life. And I was fortunate enough to work with it. But to answer your question, when I was in Colorado, I was probably the least skilled player on the team, being from Southern California and skating with guys from, Canada and the East Coast who used to play hockey like we played football. But I found my niche, and fortunately I was able to make the team, and I had some of the funnest times I can remember out there. So it's something that I was fortunate enough to do back then and kind of carry over into my professional life.
You were good enough, you made the team, and you certainly are good enough and have made the team so much better at Bally Sports West. What is it like for you during a broadcast as far as how you are wired to succeed in that sort of tense but exhilarating environment?
So I was fortunate enough when I started, to be around some really experienced producers and directors. And I've seen, the goods and the bads, and I've tried to take what I can from the goods and not do the bads. But, the production truck or the studio, it could be a high stressful, arena, but it's something that, whoever you've had on the show could tell you, it's something that you got to push through and not think about, you got to kind of be like a cornerback in the NFL. You got to have a short memory in case you make a mistake. Because mistakes will happen, but you try to limit those and make sure they don't happen again. But during live television, you never know what's going to happen. So it's something that it's a fun experience because it keeps you on your feet. And it's what you make of it. And if you don't like get to you and you try to push past the negative, then usually you'll be okay. But a lot of people have made a living out of it, so I figured I could too.
Yeah, you certainly have, and look forward to talking more about that. Short-term memory, important as a quarterback, but when you're able to dig into your long-term memory, and speaking of a quarterback, how did Carson Palmer end up at your house?
So back in high school, this was back in 99. I graduated high school in 2000. And one of my friends at the time, who was a little older than me, and it was Petros Papadakis, who actually used to babysit me, and I consider a pretty close family friend. So he kind of was playing with Carson at the time and knew I was going to have some people over at my parents' house. And to all of our surprise, Carson Palmer walked in, and all my friends were on the football team at the time, so we knew exactly who he was. And he was having a Heisman type year, which he ended up winning the Heisman that year. So it was a shock, and it was a really fun surprise. And I'm sure he didn't know what the heck was going on.
I saw that you have a couple cool pictures of Petros and you from when you were young, and what was it like getting to know him at that age? And do you have those pictures available where you could show us during?
Yeah. I'm sure I could find them here. So I've known Petros since before, he became a radio host and on television. He used to babysit me when I was growing up and pick me up from school. And he's kind of a unique individual. So, hanging out with when I was 13 and he was 18 wasn't that, but it wasn't weird to him. And I looked up to him so much, and he was someone that I always, had a blast with. And he's such a great guy that I was fortunate enough to know him before all that stuff, before he got, known to people, and he hasn't changed at all. That what you see on the radio or what you hear on the radio and what you see on TV is actually who he is, and that's kind of his personality. So I'll show you a couple pictures I have here. Here's the first one.
Wow,
And
look at that
that's
fro he's rocking.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I got a picture of my fro you might like too, but that's one of them.
Wow, there's one of them.
And this is way back in the day. Maybe I think he was in high school at the time. I was probably in 8th grade.
So you got a fro going.
I've always had, well, back before I lost it, I used to always have a little something on top. But yeah, he's been a good friend, and he's been someone that's really helped me out in this business, especially at the beginning. So I mean, I can't thank him enough.
Let's go right to how he has helped you in the beginning. What did he do to sort of set you up to succeed in this biz?
I mean, the main guy, he put me in touch with John Hefner. And John Hefner at the time was the executive producer, and he's currently back at Bally's West. And he's such a good guy. And Hef gave me the opportunity to work for Dave Frederick for the arena football team, the Avengers. That was one of my first gigs. So he introduced me to the right people. And for whoever's looking to get into this business, that helps, but once you get in, then you got to bust your tail and stay in, because I've seen a lot of turnover. So it's getting introduced to the right person and taking advantage of your opportunities, I think.
Jordy Gebhard is with us, Emmy award-winning producer / editor at Bally Sports West. I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. So a lot of people, like you said, there's a lot of turnover. A lot of people come in. Not everybody stays. How have you been able to stay? How have you been able to grow? And why wasn't this just an industry that you wanted to test out, but you gained a foothold in it and you found that this really was your calling?
I think that, you cultivate the relationships with the people that matter. I think that's one of the most important things is whoever you're working with, it doesn't matter if they're higher level than you or lower level than you got to build those relationships. And then once you build those relationships, everyone's on the same team and headed the right direction. And this is a business where, we're all on the same team. So whatever is good for the broadcast is good for all of us. So you learn to build those relationships. And then from there, whatever your position is, it's just a lot of work, some long hours. But this is a job that we all signed up for. And it's something that I'd say the vast majority of us really enjoy doing. It could be stressful, but we all signed up for this. So, I mean, I think to build some relationships and, once you get your foot in that door, to be able to work hard and, do whatever's asked you and, try to build up your reputation for being a good worker and know what you're doing, and, work will come to you.
Speaking of that work, as it continued to come, a byproduct of that being possible was the hard work, despite the grind. What did early stages in his career Jordan Gebhard look like when it came to embracing that hard work and being okay with whatever hours, whatever job you just wanted to be in, no matter what the opportunity was?
When you're young and you're out of college, you're just trying to find where you fit in. And, I'm sure a lot of people have gone through the same thing. Is you get through college and you say, what now? And the most important thing is, when you get those opportunities and you're asked to put in those long hours, that you don't look at it as a job, but you look at it as something that's going to, better your life. And those hours don't seem to be as hard and go a little quicker. And this is a job that we all have the opportunity to meet cool people, to meet athletes that we've always seen on TV. And it's something that I think most of us know what we're getting ourselves into. But those long hours are okay when it's something you're enjoying you're doing.
Speaking of enjoying a broadcast with the Kings, considering your background in growing up in Southern California and working on those broadcasts with Bally and the LA Kings. Take us into you getting to the arena, getting on site, and then what is your first objective? And then what different things do you need to cross off before you hit the air?
So for away games, Bally's West is doing the pregame show, which is my job as the AD and AP of the pregame show to get all the video cut. So I get in early. I see, what we need. I cut the video, which, could people don't realize that, 45-second tease to start the show could take you 6 hours to cut.
Wow.
So those, editing, you see the final product, but a lot goes into that. And it's a lot of time and effort to find what you need and try and make it look as good as possible. So after I'm done editing, right now we're in the studio, but I either get to the studio or the truck, and then just make sure, where everything is and the time length, and, you do, all different kinds of things. You communicate with your EVS operators and your graphics team, and you get the production done with as little resistance as possible.
Once the production is done, how much time do you let your mind go back and assess what you did, assess the broadcast, and looking at how you guys were able to pull it off to the extent in which you were hoping it would go to the way you were looking at it to be?
If something bad happens, it's hard to get over. It's plain and simple. Everyone saw it. It could be a misspelling. It could be a going to black when you weren't supposed to. It could be a swish, cut with the camera. There's so many things that could go wrong. And when they do, that stays with you. And you try to limit those mistakes. But when they do happen, you try to learn from them and try and not, make sure they don't happen again. But this is something that we've all done probably hundreds, if not thousands of games. So you learn, to take the good with the bad. Just like any other, I'm sure I can compare myself to some athletes where you say the goods you don't think about as much, but it's the bads that stick with you. So when you have a good show, you don't think about, hey, that was a great show. You think about, hey, that was supposed to be that way. When something bad happens, then it sticks with you, and you say, hopefully that doesn't happen again.
When do you allow yourself to celebrate the high standard of work that you do pull off on a regular basis?
Possibly at the end of the season. It depends on what crew I'm working on. I take the Ducks crew, for instance, and Bob Sippy is the game producer. He's such a professional, and he's such a solid guy who knows exactly what he wants, but is never overbearing about it, which, you could run into that sometimes with, different game producers or different, people, but he's such a person that he builds the environment almost as a family. So everyone at the end of the season or at the end of the game will, either get together or just kind of take a step back and, kind of just give each other a pat on the back for a good season. So, we're not celebrating popping champagne ever, but I think at the end of each year, then we're able to kind of appreciate what we did. So, some people measure that in awards or Emmys or Tellys, but it's how the job made you feel in my mind.
How though did you feel when you landed that
You're
Emmy?
proud. You're happy that you're part of something that you've always watched or you've always grown up interested in. So, without getting too sappy about it, it's something that we like. We love this. This is something that we've always wanted to do, working in sports. So when you do a good job and you do get awarded, then that makes you feel good. But I'd say the prouder moments are, after the season's over and, people are able to hang out and talk about the goods and realize that we're all pretty fortunate to be in this industry.
When you are hanging out and you're talking about your career, and maybe you look back at your start, you look at how you got in, and then you look at where you are now. If you had an inclination of where you were going when you were just coming out of college, what would you say to yourself? What would that sit like with you?
um, I mean, if I had to give myself some advice, it's just, listen and learn from things around you. You know, be a sponge. When I began, I was around, like Bob Morgan, who was the King's producer for 35 years since the 70s. I worked with him close. And I was a 22-year-old kid. He was, probably, I'm not sure how old he was, and I'm not going to go there, but he was such a good person and such a professional. It's been along for, Jerry Weinstein was the Angel producer. He was doing it for 25 years. Dave Frederick, who now is at the NFL, was doing it for 25 years. So when I got there, saw a ton of experience. I tried to absorb it as well as I could, but you kind of got to set your own path when it comes to this. You got to do what's easiest for you, because everyone's got their own strategies and ideas about what's good, and what's good, what looks good to one person might not look good to the other person. So you're trying to find that healthy mix of trying to make people happy yet still have that creative ability to show people something maybe a little different that they wouldn't see every day.
Jordan Gebhard is with us. I'm Bryan Fenley. I have one interesting question that I want to throw at you here to sort of wrap this up. And how have you impressed yourself through this journey of yours?
I'm still trying there, Bryan. I'm still trying to impress myself, but I mean, it's just, I mean, hockey, especially with sports in general, is something that's been a part of my life since I can remember. And for a lot of people, it's just a hobby. But I wasn't fortunate enough to make a living off this. And I worked on locations for Hollywood sets and television shows, and I worked on different non-sports shows. And honestly, that's more of a job to me. I mean, this is something that I think most people, they knew what they were signing up for and they were happy to do it. We have the ability to see athletes, to become friendly with athletes, to become friendly with good people that you otherwise wouldn't in the truck. And these are people that all have different types of personalities, but they mesh together to make a production work. And I think at the end of the day that most people would sign up for it in a heartbeat if they had the opportunity again.
Like a good team player, you are such a great collaborator with your crew, and you've got that synergy down. They talk about team chemistry. That's a cliche in sports, but you guys have it in the broadcast truck, and it is apparent by what we witness on television with your work with the Kings and, of course, the Ducks and other entities you do with Bally Sports West. Jordan, you are living out a dream, and I can feel the gratitude through it all, knowing that it wasn't easy, but the fact is passion is at the center of it all for you, and it's carried you, and it's going to continue to carry you to higher grounds. And I've had so much fun talking to you about your career, and I can't wait for Petros to see that little bit where you talking about him. I love Petros, and so you and I both share that admiration for him. Jordan Gebhard, I'm Bryan Fenley with Fox Sports Radio. Thanks for doing this, Jordan. This was fun.
I appreciate it, Bryan. Thanks for having me.